For eons, the galaxy trembled at the mere mention of the apex predator that lurked on planet Xeris. Entire civilizations had fallen to this legendary creature, leaving only shattered ruins and fading screams in its wake. No one dared approach Xeris for fear of sharing their fate, until now. Ambassador Varys of Cardassia burst into the Galactic Council chamber, his face pale with dread. Long-range scans had detected the unthinkable. A ship had landed on Xeris's forbidden surface. But it wasn't just any species who would dare such madness. It was the humans, those brash newcomers who had exploded onto the galactic stage mere decades ago. The same humans whose colony the apex predator had decimated just a few years prior. The council watched in stunned silence as a vid transmission from the human ship flickered to life. Captain Jeremy Simmons, leader of the expedition, stood defiant before the camera. He spoke of the colony lost to the predator's wrath and of the fear that had gripped humanity in its wake. But he also spoke of hope, of ancient ruins that whispered of the creature's true nature, of powers that might hold the key to humanity's future or herald their downfall. The humans had to know for certain, and they would not be deterred. Ignoring the council's warnings, Simmons and his team ventured forth into the very heart of the creature's domain. But what they found there defied every expectation. Advanced technology glimmered within the halls of the apex predator's lair, and when the being itself emerged, it did not attack. Instead, as a shocked galaxy looked on, the creature almost tenderly returned the human's proffered hand of peace. In that moment, everything changed. Humanity's boldness had not spelled their end, but rather the beginning of a new era, an era where the apex predator was no longer a nightmare to be feared, but perhaps an ally to be embraced. The nature of the galaxy itself had shifted, and the humans stood at the forefront of a future none could have imagined. The only question now was how far that future might take them. As the galaxy reeled from the revelation of humanity's peaceful contact with the apex predator, Captain Jeremy Simmons and his team settled into their new base camp on Xeris. The ancient structure that housed the creature, now known as Titan, loomed nearby, its secrets waiting to be unlocked. Dr. Amelia Chen, the team's xenobiologist, immersed herself in studying the ruins that dotted the landscape. Her scans revealed a startling truth. Titan was the sole survivor of a once thriving species that had been at the heart of Xeris's civilization. As she delved deeper, Amelia discovered the remnants of advanced weaponry, evidence of a cataclysmic war that had brought both Titan's kind and their worshippers to the brink of extinction. In the shadow of this dark history, Jeremy and Lieutenant Marcus Reynolds worked to forge a connection with Titan. The creature's intelligence was undeniable as it deftly manipulated objects with its tentacles, weaving intricate patterns in the air. Titan seemed drawn to Jeremy in particular, often seeking out the captain's presence with an almost curious air. Amelia's findings painted a picture of Titan's species as gentle guardians, once revered by the inhabitants of Xeris. But that reverence had turned to fear, sparking a conflict that ultimately doomed both sides. As she presented her discoveries to Jeremy and Marcus, Amelia voiced her concerns. If knowledge of Titan's existence spread, would history repeat itself? Would fear once again lead to destruction? Unbeknownst to the team, their every move was being watched. A cloaked probe, dispatched by the Galactic Council, hovered silently above their camp. The footage it captured, of humans and Titan interacting peacefully, was met with a mix of wonder and disbelief by the council members. Some, like the Nylaxian representative Zoran, saw only a threat in Titan's power. As the council debated their next move, Zoran took matters into his own hands. A Nylaxian Black Ops team, tasked with eliminating Titan, quietly slipped through space towards Xeris. On the planet's surface, Jeremy and his crew continued their work, unaware of the forces converging upon them. Trust was a delicate thing, hard-won and easily shattered. As Titan and its human allies strengthened their bond, the stage was set for a confrontation that would test the very foundation of their nascent understanding. The future of two species, and perhaps the galaxy itself, hung in the balance, waiting for the crucial moment that would tip the scales towards either unity or destruction. As the Galactic Council delegation's ship descended through Xeris's atmosphere, Captain Jeremy Simmons stood at the edge of the human base camp, his eyes fixed on the horizon. Beside him, Dr. Amelia Chen and Lieutenant Marcus Reynolds shared a look of apprehension. The next few hours would be crucial in determining the fate of not only Titan, but also the future of human-alien relations. The sleek vessel touched down on the rocky terrain, its landing gear sinking into the loose soil. A ramp extended from the ship's belly, and a group of figures emerged, led by a tall, lithe alien with pale blue skin and silver eyes. Towery, the Veloxian diplomat, strode forward with an air of purpose, his long robes billowing in the gentle breeze. Jeremy stepped forward to greet the delegation, his hand outstretched in a gesture of welcome. "Ambassador Tory, thank you for coming. I know the journey was long, but I believe what we have to show you will be worth your time." Tory grasped Jeremy's hand firmly, his silver eyes searching the human's face. "Captain Simmons, the Galactic Council is intrigued by your reports. I hope that the trust you have placed in us will be rewarded with understanding and cooperation." As Jeremy led the delegation into the base camp, Amelia and Marcus fell into step beside him. They shared their findings on Titan and its history, the words tumbling out in an eager rush. Towery listened intently, his expression shifting from curiosity to amazement as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. In the heart of the camp, Titan waited, its massive form casting a shadow across the ground. The creature's tentacles twitched as it sensed the approach of the newcomers, but it remained still, trusting in the bond it had formed with its human allies. Towery approached Titan slowly, his eyes wide with wonder. He reached out a tentative hand, and Titan responded in kind, gently brushing its tentacle against the Veloxian's palm. In that moment, a spark of understanding passed between them, a recognition of the potential for peace and cooperation. But the moment was shattered by the sudden blare of alarms. Jeremy's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the skies. "We've got incoming!" A dozen Nilaxian fighters streaked overhead, their weapons hot. The Black Ops team, led by Commander Zaid, had launched their attack, determined to eliminate the perceived threat of Titan. Chaos erupted as the fighters opened fire, their laser beams scorching the ground and sending plumes of dirt and rock flying. The human soldiers scrambled for cover, their weapons at the ready. But Titan was faster. The creature's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as it unleashed its telekinetic powers. The Nilaxian fighters suddenly found themselves caught in an invisible grip, their weapons ripped away and crushed like tin cans. Zaid's ship, the only one to evade Titan's grasp, swooped low over the camp, its thrusters screaming. The commander's voice crackled over the comms, demanding surrender. Jeremy's response was drowned out by the roar of another engine. Zoran's flagship, a massive dreadnought, broke through the clouds, its shadow engulfing the camp. The Nilaxian representative's face appeared on the consoles, his expression twisted with rage. "Titan must be destroyed," he bellowed. "It is a threat to the galaxy." Jeremy stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Ambassador Zoran, please, listen to reason. Titan is not a threat. It is a sentient being, one that could be a valuable ally. Give us a chance to present our case before the Council." But Zoran's reply was cut short by a sudden blinding flash of light. Titan, its form glowing with an intense radiance, unleashed a massive energy surge that swept across the planet's surface. The ships in orbit, their systems overloaded by the surge, went dark. Consoles sparked and screens flickered as power failed, leaving the vessels drifting helplessly. When the light faded, Titan was gone. Jeremy stared at the empty space where the creature had stood, his heart sinking with the realization of what had happened. Titan had sacrificed its own safety to prevent further conflict, to give the humans a chance to prove its true nature. In the aftermath of the chaos, Tari's voice cut through the silence. "Ambassador Zoran, I believe we should allow Captain Simmons and his team to present their findings to the Council. We cannot make a decision based on fear and ignorance." Zoran, his face tight with anger, hesitated for a long moment before finally nodding his assent. "Very well, but know this, Captain. If the Council decides that Titan is a threat, there will be no mercy." As the Nilaxian ships withdrew and the Council delegation prepared to depart, Jeremy turned to his team, his expression grim. We have our chance. Now we have to make it count. But even as they set course for the galactic capital, a new discovery awaited them. Amelia, poring over the data files in the base camp's computer systems, let out a gasp of surprise. Jeremy, you need to see this. During the energy surge, Titan transferred a massive amount of data to our systems. It's incredible. The knowledge and technology of its entire civilization entrusted to us. Jeremy leaned over Amelia's shoulder, his eyes widening as he scanned the complex schematics and equations that filled the screens. The implications were staggering. Titan had given them the keys to unlocking the secrets of its lost world. But first, they had to ensure that Titan would survive to see that future. On Xeris, in the shadows of the ancient ruins, Titan emerged from its hiding place. Its form was weakened, its energy spent. But it knew that the only way forward was to trust in its human allies, to believe that they could pave the way for a new era of understanding. The road ahead would be nearly impossible, fraught with challenges and obstacles. But as Jeremy and his team set their course for the galactic capital, they carried with them the hope of a better future. A future where the gulf between species could be bridged, where fear could give way to cooperation. The fate of Titan and the future of the stars itself now rested in their hands. The journey to the Galactic Council headquarters was tense. Jeremy paced the ship's corridors, reviewing their strategy with Amelia and Marcus. As they approached the massive space station that housed the Council, Jeremy's breath caught in his throat. The fate of Titan, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders. Upon docking, they were immediately escorted to the Grand Council chamber. Alien dignitaries from across the galaxy filled the tiered seating, their hushed whispers echoing off the vaulted ceilings. At the center stood a raised dais where the council elders sat, their faces impassive. Before Jeremy could speak, Zoran's voice boomed through the chamber. "These humans are fools. They've been manipulated by a creature of immense power and unknown motives." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Jeremy clenched his fists, struggling to maintain his composure. But before he could respond, a familiar voice cut through the noise. "I have seen Titan with my own eyes," Tauri declared, stepping forward. "This being sacrificed its own freedom to prevent further bloodshed. Such actions speak louder than any words of fear." A hush fell over the chamber. Jeremy nodded gratefully to Tauri, then gestured for Amelia to take the floor. She activated a holographic display, filling the air with complex data streams and ancient symbols. "Honored Council," Amelia began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "We've decrypted the data Titan shared with us. It reveals a civilization of peacemakers, guardians who sought to elevate all sentient life. But they were hunted to near extinction by those who feared what they didn't understand." Zoran scoffed. "Convenient propaganda from the creature itself. We cannot trust—" His words were cut short as security footage appeared on the main screen. It showed the unprovoked attack by Nilaxian fighters on the human camp. Several council members gasped, turning accusing eyes to Zoran. The Nilaxian representative's face flushed dark blue. "You see," he sputtered, "the humans have been corrupted by Titan's influence. We must intervene with full military force before it's too late." The chamber erupted into heated debate. Jeremy watched helplessly as the council fractured along lines of fear and mistrust. Finally, he stepped forward, raising his voice above the din. "Esteemed council," he said, his words ringing clear, "I ask only for a chance. Let us return to Xeris with a small, diverse team. We'll make contact with Titan, assess its intentions transparently. If we're wrong about its peaceful nature, I'll be the first to admit it." The council fell silent, considering his words. After what felt like an eternity, the head elder nodded slowly. "We agree to this compromise. But know this, a Nilaxian battle group will monitor from orbit. If they deem it necessary, they have authorization to attack." Jeremy exhaled slowly, relief and trepidation warring within him. As they prepared to depart, he caught Zoran's eye. The Nilaxian's gaze was cold, calculating. This was just getting started. Back on Xeris, Jeremy led his expanded team across the windswept plains. Among the newcomers was Theria, a Rylanthian scientist with iridescent scales and keen multifaceted eyes. As they approached the ancient ruins where Titan had last been seen, Tharia's antennae quivered with excitement. "Fascinating," she murmured, examining the intricate glyphs carved into a fallen pillar. "These energy patterns, I believe I can modulate our scanners to—" She was cut off by a low rumbling sound. The ground trembled beneath their feet as Titan emerged from the shadows of a crumbling archway. Its massive form seemed diminished somehow, weary from its ordeal. Tharia's eyes widened as she quickly adjusted her equipment. A shimmering field of energy surrounded them, pulsing with complex patterns. To Jeremy's amazement, Titan responded, its own energy field shifting and changing. "It's working," Tharia exclaimed. "We're communicating." Through this newfound connection, Titan's desires became clear. It sought not domination, but coexistence. It offered to share the vast knowledge of its people, but on one condition: the cycle of fear and violence must end. As understanding dawned on the faces of his team members, Jeremy felt a surge of hope. They had a chance to change everything, to usher in a new era of cooperation and advancement. But the shadow of the Nilaxian battle group loomed overhead, a constant reminder of the fragile nature of their progress. Jeremy looked up at Titan, its ancient eyes filled with a mixture of wisdom and wariness. He knew that the real challenge was just beginning. Somehow they had to convince not just the Council, but the entire galaxy that this was a turning point in history, a chance to reach for the stars not in fear, but in unity. Jeremy gazed out at the windswept plains of Xeris, his mind racing with possibilities. Titan's offer to share its civilization's knowledge was a pivotal moment, one that could reshape the galaxy. He turned to his team, eyes alight with perseverance. "We need a safe haven for Titan," he said. "Somewhere it can transfer its wisdom without fear of attack or interference." Tharia's antenna quivered with excitement. "A sanctuary. Think of the scientific advancements we could make with unfettered access to Titan's knowledge." The team quickly sketched out plans for a temporary refuge, but their enthusiasm was dampened by Zoran's vehement objections. The Nilaxian representative's face twisted with anger on the display. "Absolutely not," he snarled. "You would give this creature free rein to influence even more species?" Hours of tense negotiations followed, with Tauri acting as a calm mediator between the factions. Finally, a compromise emerged, a hidden sanctuary on the rogue planetoid Karhal, with a joint human-Rylanthian research outpost. "A demilitarized zone," Tauri emphasized, his voice firm. "No stationed military forces. Diplomatic protection only." Zoran grudgingly agreed, though his eyes narrowed as he added, "Our ships will monitor from a distance. Any sign of deception, and we intervene." The journey to Karhal was a marvel in itself. Titan effortlessly manipulated energy and gravity, making the massive Rylanthian transport feel as nimble as a fighter. Jeremy watched in awe as the creature reshaped matter around it, forming living habitats seamlessly integrated into Karhal's caverns. Tharia's multifaceted eyes gleamed as she observed Titan's casual manipulation of fundamental forces. "Incredible," she breathed. "It's as if the laws of physics are mere suggestions to this being." But even as they began the monumental task of transferring data repositories, trouble brewed. Jeremy felt a sudden alien presence brush against his mind, a psychic warning from Titan. His hand flew to his communicator. "Security breach," he barked. "Nilaxian operatives have infiltrated the base." The resulting chaos nearly sparked an interstellar incident. It was only Tauri's swift intervention through emergency council arbitration that prevented military retaliation. In the aftermath, Jeremy knew they needed a new approach. "We need transparency," he told the assembled delegates. "An exchange of knowledge and personnel. It's the only way to build trust." To his surprise, Zoran agreed, appointing an observer delegation led by Commander Kizak. Among them was Zaya, a young Nilaxian scientist whose curious eyes betrayed her fascination with Titan. As the creature began to share its vast data streams, Zaya found herself captivated. "The depth of knowledge here. It's beyond anything we've ever encountered," she murmured, fingers flying across her console. Kizak, however, remained skeptical. His gaze darted constantly between Titan and the readouts, searching for any hint of weapon schematics or military applications. Then came Titan's most stunning revelation yet. Through a series of complex energy patterns, it conveyed the secret of near-immortality hibernation, a technique that had allowed its species to survive galactic cataclysms. Jeremy's mind reeled at the implications. This could revolutionize medicine, space travel, everything, he said, his voice hushed with awe. We need to share this openly with all species. It could be the key to uniting a divided galaxy. As the team began preparations to disseminate this groundbreaking knowledge, Jeremy caught Zaya's eye. The young Nilaxian nodded almost imperceptibly, a silent acknowledgement of the momentous change on the horizon. But Kizak's stern expression and Zoran's looming threat served as stark reminders. The path to peace would not be an easy one. The revelation of Titan's hibernation technology sent shockwaves through the research outpost on Karhal. Jeremy paced the main conference room, his eyes alight with the possibilities. This changes everything, he said, gesturing to the holographic display of Titan's data. Imagine what we could achieve if we shared this knowledge freely. Commander Kizak's face darkened. Or the devastation it could cause in the wrong hands. The military applications alone are irrelevant compared to the potential for good, Zaya interjected, her scales shimmering with excitement. This could revolutionize medicine, space exploration. A deafening explosion cut her off. The floor shook violently, sending equipment crashing to the ground. Alarms blared as Jeremy rushed to the observation deck. His heart sank at the sight of Nilaxian stealth fighters, swarming the skies, their weapons blazing. "We're under attack," he shouted into his comm. "All personnel, evacuate immediately." Chaos erupted as researchers and diplomats scrambled for safety. Titan's massive form shimmered, projecting energy shields that deflected the worst of the barrage. Jeremy's mind raced, assessing their options. "Zaya, get the wounded to the emergency shuttles," he ordered. "I'm going to coordinate a counterattack." The young Nilaxian nodded grimly, her medical kit already in hand as she dashed towards the growing crowd of injured. Jeremy sprinted to the command center, dodging falling debris. He keyed into the main communications array. "This is Outpost Karhal to all Allied ships. We are under heavy assault by Nilaxian forces, requesting immediate assistance." A familiar voice crackled through the static. "Jeremy, it's Tari. We've detected the attack and are mobilizing reinforcements. Hold out as long as you can." "Understood," Jeremy replied, his heart made. He turned to the assembled security team. "We need to buy time. I'm leading a strike team to infiltrate their flagship." The next hours were a blur of frantic action. Jeremy's squad fought their way through waves of Nilaxian troops, their advance slowed by vicious close-quarters combat. Finally, they breached the command deck, subduing the radical leader Vortak after a fierce struggle. But their victory was short-lived. Vortak's eyes gleamed with fanatical triumph as he triggered a hidden control. "You're too late," he snarled. "Behold the instrument of your doom." A sleek biomissile streaked from the ship's launch bay, its payload a horrifying product of stolen data and twisted science. It detonated in the caverns below, releasing a rapidly mutating virus designed to target Titan's unique biology. Containment protocols sprang into action, but the contagion spread with terrifying speed. Titan, recognizing the threat, encased itself in an impenetrable biosphere. On the ground, Zaya worked tirelessly, her medical skills pushed to the limit as she treated a never-ending stream of patients. The virus mutated faster than they could develop countermeasures. Outside the outpost, a defensive line formed. Humans, Rylanthians, and even moderate Nilaxians stood shoulder to shoulder, repelling waves of Vortak's fanatics. The unity forged in crisis was a stark contrast to the distrust of mere days ago. Tauri's reinforcements arrived, breaking the siege. But as the dust settled, a grim reality set in. The virus continued to evolve, threatening all life on Karhal. In this darkest hour, Titan acted. Its consciousness interfaced with the outpost systems, projecting a message across the stars. The hibernation technology, it revealed, was but a fraction of its people's legacy. Within its vast genomic database lay the key to reversing any mutagenic threat. As Allied ships maintained a protective vigil, Titan's form began to shift. It entered a chrysalis state, its very atoms rewriting themselves to combat the viral scourge. The assembled beings watched in awe as the creature that had been feared now fought to save them all. Zoran, his face haggard from the ordeal, approached Jeremy. "I may have misjudged Titan's intentions," he admitted grudgingly. Jeremy nodded, his eyes fixed on the shimmering cocoon. "This is just the beginning," he said softly, "of something far greater than any of us imagined." Jeremy watched as Titan's shimmering cocoon pulsed with energy. Days turned into weeks, and the assembled diplomats and scientists maintained a tense vigil around the evolving creature. Zaya approached, her scales gleaming in the artificial light of the outpost. "Any changes?" she asked, her multifaceted eyes fixed on Titan's form. Jeremy shook his head. "Nothing yet, but I can feel something, a shift in the air." As if in response to his words, the cocoon began to crack. Hairline fissures spread across its surface, releasing tendrils of light. The assembled crowd held its breath as Titan emerged, transformed. Gone was the purely organic being they had known. In its place stood a marvel of biomechanical fusion, sleek metallic components seamlessly integrated with pulsing organic tissue. Titan's eyes, now glowing with an inner light, swept across the room. "Remarkable," Dr. Amelia Chen breathed, her fingers flying across her datapad. "The level of integration between biological and technological systems is unprecedented." Titan's form shimmered, and suddenly every computer terminal in the room lit up. Data streamed across screens faster than the human eye could follow. Amelia's eyes widened as she processed the information. It's giving us everything," she said, her voice filled with awe. "The entire knowledge base of its species." As the scientist pored over the data, Jeremy noticed Commander Kizak's face darken. The Nilaxian's hand tightened on his weapon. "This changes nothing," Kizak growled. "We cannot trust this creature with such power. It must be contained." Tauri stepped forward, his calm voice cutting through the tension. "We have an opportunity here, Commander. To learn, to grow. We must approach this with open minds." Heated debates erupted across the outpost as factions argued over how to proceed. Jeremy found himself mediating disputes, his diplomatic skills stretched to their limits. Weeks passed, and Dr. Chen made a stunning discovery. "Look at this," she said, projecting a complex schematic. "It's some kind of quantum entanglement device. The implications are staggering." As she explained the potential of the technology, Jeremy saw the greed in Kizak's eyes. The commander's voice was low and dangerous as he spoke. "With this, we could rule the galaxy. We must seize control." "No," Tauri interrupted firmly. "This knowledge belongs to all species. We will share it, carefully and equally." Jeremy nodded in agreement, but he couldn't shake a sense of unease. As he left the meeting, he caught sight of Kizak speaking in hushed tones with a group of Nilaxian officers. Their furtive glances set off alarm bells in his mind. Titan's voice, a strange hybrid of organic and synthetic tones, echoed through the outpost's communication system. "I propose a demonstration. Let us show you the true potential of this technology." On a barren moon orbiting Karhal, scientists and diplomats gathered to witness history. Titan's form pulsed with energy as it interfaced with the hastily constructed resonator array. The air crackled with anticipation as the device powered up. Suddenly, alarms blared. Jeremy's hand flew to his weapon as he saw a group of Nilaxian extremists charging towards the array. "Stop them!" he shouted, racing to intercept the attackers. Chaos erupted as security forces clashed with the infiltrators. In the midst of the firefight, Titan acted. A tendril of pure energy lashed out, enveloping the Nilaxian radicals. They froze in place, immobilized but unharmed. With the threat neutralized, Titan turned its attention back to the array. A beam of impossible light erupted from the device, bathing the moon's surface in shimmering waves of energy. Jeremy watched in awe as the barren rock transformed before his eyes. Atmosphere coalesced from nothing. Oceans formed in the blink of an eye. Mountains rose and fell like waves on the sea, and everywhere life began to bloom. As the assembled beings stood in stunned silence, Jeremy realized they stood at the precipice of a new era. The galaxy would never be the same. The newly terraformed moon hung in Karhal's sky, a shimmering testament to Titan's power. Jeremy stood at the observation deck, watching shuttles descend towards the hastily constructed summit venue. "Nervous?" Dr. Chen asked, joining him at the window. Jeremy exhaled slowly. "Just wondering how we got here. A month ago, we were on the brink of war. And now we're on the brink of something else entirely," Chen mused. The summit chamber buzzed with anticipation. Jeremy took his place at the head of the human delegation, nodding to Theria, the Rylanthian scientist whose brilliance had made this gathering possible. Commander Kizak's scowling face stood out among the sea of diplomats. A hush fell over the room as Titan's consciousness surged through the energy conduit matrix. The air itself seemed to vibrate with potential. "Esteemed representatives," Titan's voice resonated, both organic and synthetic. "I come before you not as conqueror, but as supplicant." The being's history unfolded before them in cascading waves of light and sound. Jeremy felt the weight of eons press upon him as he witnessed the rise and fall of Titan species, their desperate attempts to nurture life throughout the cosmos. "We sought to share knowledge," Titan's voice echoed with sorrow, "but fear and mistrust led to our near extinction." Images of devastated worlds and shattered civilizations flickered across the chamber. Jeremy noticed several diplomats averting their eyes, shame etched on their faces. "But today," Titan continued, its tone brightening, "we stand at a crossroads. I offer you the full breadth of our knowledge, from energy generation beyond your wildest dreams to manufacturing techniques that could rebuild worlds." The chamber erupted in excited whispers. Jeremy caught Kizak's eye, noting the Nilaxian's hand tightening on his ceremonial weapon. "However," Titan's voice cut through the commotion, "this gift comes with a price. You must vow, on behalf of your species and civilizations, to use this knowledge only for the preservation and betterment of all life." Silence fell. Jeremy could almost taste the tension in the air. Kizak surged to his feet. "This is madness. We cannot cede such power to an alien entity. How do we know this isn't some elaborate trap?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Jeremy's heart sank as he saw weeks of progress teetering on the edge of collapse. Then a calm voice cut through the din. "My friends," Tauri, the elder Veloxian diplomat, said as he rose, "we stand at the precipice of a new age. For millennia, our peoples have dreamed of unity, of transcending our base instincts and reaching for the stars together." Jeremy watched as Tauri's words washed over the assembly. Even Kizak's scowl softened slightly. "Titan offers us not just knowledge, but a chance to heal the wounds of our shared history," Tauri continued. "I, for one, choose to embrace this opportunity." One by one, representatives stepped forward, voices raised in solemn vows to uphold Titan's mandate. Jeremy's chest swelled with pride as he pledged humanity's commitment to this new path. As the final resolutions were formalized, Jeremy found himself thrust into a new role: human ambassador and head of security for Titan's sanctuary. Dr. Chen and Tharia were already deep in discussion, their eyes alight with the possibilities of the research ahead. To his surprise, Kizak approached, Zaya at his side. The young Nilaxian scientist's scales shimmered with barely held-back excitement. "Captain Simmons," Kizak said stiffly, "I may have been hasty in my judgment. Perhaps there is wisdom in this new arrangement." Jeremy nodded, sensing the effort it took for the proud commander to make such an admission. "We all have much to learn, Commander. I look forward to working with you." As the delegates dispersed, their minds reeling with the possibilities of this new era, Jeremy gazed out at the transformed moon. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of Titan's grand design. Simmons's communicator chirped urgently, breaking the momentary calm that had settled over Titan's sanctuary. He excused himself from a discussion with Dr. Chen and stepped into a quiet alcove. "Ambassador Simmons," a panicked voice crackled through the device. "This is Colonial Outpost Zeta 9. We're under attack." The transmission dissolved into static, punctuated by the sound of distant explosions. Simmons's blood ran cold as he decrypted the data packet accompanying the distress call. His eyes widened as he absorbed the implications. "Chen," he called out, his voice tight with urgency. "We have a situation." Within minutes, the Sanctuary's command center buzzed with activity. Simmons, Chen, and Theria huddled around a holographic display, their faces illuminated by the eerie glow of tactical readouts. "It's impossible," Theria whispered, her multifaceted eyes darting across streams of data. "These energy signatures, they're Titan-derived, but twisted, corrupted." Chen's fingers flew across her console. "Confirmed. Whatever this is, it's torn through Zeta-9's defenses like they weren't even there." A new alert flashed on the screen. Simmons felt his stomach drop as he read the message. "It's gone," he said, his voice barely audible. "The attacker vanished. But look at these radiation patterns." "Antimatter storms," Chen breathed, her face pale. "Capable of planetary annihilation," Theria finished, her voice trembling. The door hissed open, and Commander Kizak strode in, his face a mask of nearly unleashed fury. "Simmons," he growled, "explain this." He thrust a datapad forward, displaying a grainy image of a grotesque, chimeric creature. Simmons's mind reeled as he processed the information before him. "A genetic abomination," he muttered, "using Titan's DNA. But who?" His question was cut short as Zaya burst into the room, her scales pale with shock. "It's Vrak," she said, her voice quavering. "My brother. He always resented the alliance, saw it as weakness." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Simmons looked from face to face, seeing his own horror reflected in their eyes. The fragile piece they had worked so hard to build now balanced on a knife's edge. "We need a plan," Simmons said, his mind already racing through possibilities. "Kizak, can your forces—" The Nalaxian commander nodded grimly. "We'll do what we must." As they began to formulate a strategy, alarms blared throughout the sanctuary. Chen's fingers danced across her console, bringing up a galactic map dotted with pulsing red alerts. "Multiple attacks," she reported, her voice tight. "Antimatter proxies. They're targeting worlds already strained by Titan's uplifting technology." Simmons watched in horror as the map lit up with more and more distress signals. The carefully crafted alliance was unraveling before their eyes, plunging into chaos and civil war. In the midst of the pandemonium, Titan's consciousness surged through the sanctuary systems. Its voice, a blend of sorrow and willpower, filled the command center. "I have seen this before," the being intoned, "the cycle of fear and destruction. It must end." The air crackled with energy as Titan's form began to shimmer and dissolve. Simmons felt a wave of empathy and understanding wash over him, and he knew instinctively that the others felt it too. "What's happening?" Kizak demanded, his usual bravado replaced by awe. "Ascension," Theria whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. As Titan's physical form faded from existence, its final message echoed through their minds. The cosmos is a unified force that transcends individuality. Unity and growth await any open to it. In that moment, as the alarms continued to blare and reports of devastation poured in from across the galaxy, Simmons realized that their greatest challenge and their greatest hope lay in embracing Titan's parting wisdom. The command center fell silent as Titan's final message faded. Simmons blinked, his mind struggling to process the enormity of what had just occurred. The alarms continued their incessant wailing, but they seemed distant now, almost muffled. "We need to act," Kizak growled, breaking the spell. His scales bristled with agitation as he gestured to the holographic display. "Our worlds are burning while we stand here gawking." Simmons nodded, forcing himself back to the present. "You're right. Chen, what's our status?" The scientist's fingers flew across her console. It's bad, Jeremy. Multiple systems reporting widespread devastation. The antimatter strikes have destabilized entire planets." Tharia's multifaceted eyes darted between readouts. "The uplifting technology, it's making things worse. Newly terraformed worlds are collapsing under the strain." A priority message flashed on the main screen. Simmons felt his stomach drop as he read it. "Meridian," he whispered. "My home colony. They're calling for immediate evacuation." Without hesitation, Simmons keyed his communicator. "This is Ambassador Simmons. I'm declaring an emergency summit on Meridian. All Allied representatives are to convene immediately." As the command center erupted into frenzied activity, Simmons pulled Chen and Tharia aside. "We need to salvage what we can of Titan's data," he said in a low voice. "It might be our only hope of understanding what we're up against." The journey to Meridian was tense, the shuttle's viewports offering glimpses of the chaos unfolding across the galaxy. Simmons watched grimly as distant worlds flickered with antimatter storms, their surfaces scarred by unnatural devastation. As they approached the colony, Simmons was struck by how unchanged it appeared from orbit. But as they descended through the atmosphere, the illusion shattered. Crowds of panicked colonists swarmed the spaceport, desperate to escape the impending doom that seemed to hang in the air itself. The emergency summit convened in a hastily fortified bunker beneath the colonial capital. Simmons stood at the head of a long table, surrounded by holographic projections of Allied leaders who couldn't make the journey in person. "We stand at a crossroads," Simmons began, his voice steady despite the weight of responsibility. "Titan's legacy is in our hands, but so too is the threat of total annihilation." Kaizak's hologram flickered as he leaned forward. "We must weaponize this technology," he insisted. "It's the only way to defend ourselves against these extremists." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber, but Zaya's voice cut through the noise. "No!" she cried, her scales shimmering with emotion. "That's exactly what my brother and his followers want. We can't let fear drive us to pervert Titan's vision." The debate raged on, factions forming and dissolving as arguments flew back and forth. Simmons watched it all, a growing sense of dread settling in his gut. The fragile alliance they had worked so hard to build was fracturing before his eyes. Suddenly, Chen burst into the chamber, her face pale. "Ambassador," she gasped, "you need to see this." Simmons followed her to a makeshift lab where Tharia hunched over a complex array of instruments. The Rylanthian scientist looked up as they entered, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and wonder. "We found something," Tharia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hidden within Titan's data. A submatrix, undetectable by conventional scans." Chen nodded, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface. It's incredible. The secrets of Titan's own creation. The story of its species' birth." As the scientists explained their discovery, Simmons felt the ground shift beneath his feet. The revelation of Titan's origins, the cruel irony of its creator's fate, and the staggering implications of the Genesis codes hidden within the submatrix. It was almost too much to comprehend. But there was no time to fully process the information. An alarm blared through the complex, and Simmons's communicator crackled to life. "Ambassador," a panicked voice shouted, "we've detected a Xenocide fleet on approach. They're demanding we hand over the submatrix data." Simmons exchanged a grim look with Chen and Tharia. The true battle for the galaxy's future was about to begin.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.